Hey guys, and welcome to another exciting installment of Picture This Film Reviews. I'm Dan,
And I am Matt.
and today we're excited to go a little off key a little bit. We've only done, I think, one other video even similar to this. It's a top five video for us. And for our top five today, we'll be doing the top five worst sequels ever made, or top five worst sequels we could do without. So, really excited to dive into this. Matt, I know a little bit of what you have on your list. We did a back and forth last time. I think you said before the show you had some honorable mentions you wanted to go through. Not sure if you still wanted to do that or if you still just want to jump right into the script for us.
Yeah, I've got three honorable mentions. One of them has changed since the last time we discussed this. So I'll just throw those out really quickly without any kind of description as to why. I think a lot of them speak for themselves. Right off the bat, honorable mentions that didn't quite make this list, but if we were doing a top 10, they'd definitely be there. Hocus Pocus 2. Yeah. Dirty Dancing 2, which shout out to Dan for bringing that to my attention because yeah, it wasn't a bad movie, but it was unnecessary. Did not need to be made. Along with the new Dirty Dancing that they're currently making now, doesn't need to be made. But I'll save that for a future next year's video. And then lastly, Staying Alive, the sequel to the John Travolta Saturday Night Fever, um, which again, it's not a bad movie. It just didn't need to be made, and it's completely different from Saturday Night Fever, like total opposite kind of movie. Directed by Sylvester Stallone of all people. So those are my honorable mentions. Did you want to do your number five first, or you want me to go right into number five?
Um, you know what? I think if it's okay with you, I'll just go ahead and launch right into my number five. And my number five is a movie that just freshly came out. And honestly, I know this is going to get a lot of mixed reactions. We've even done a video on this, and that unfortunately is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I feel like for our hero, the turn of events just became pretty much dramatic. All the adventures that he had done throughout the course of his life, we cut into his where he is now. It's pretty much gone for naught. His son has passed away. Spoilers: his wife and him have separated, and honestly, he's got a goddaughter that wants to bring him back, but for her own nefarious intentions, and tries to get him killed a couple times. And honestly, I think Indiana Jones deserved better than that. In my opinion, it's not a perfect movie. And it's not a movie that I necessarily needed to see. We could have had the original three, and it would have been perfect. But we had you know the Crystal
Crystal
Skull
Skull.
mixed in there, and it just kind of went downhill from there. And unfortunately, didn't get any better. And as we record this, that is still being noted as a flop in the movie theaters. So unfortunately, it seems like the people paying to go see it just not enough to recoup their costs. So
It's not a flop though.
what's not a flop, Matt?
Mission Impossible.
Oh,
Tom Cruise is saving the day again.
it's a good thing that he came in. I mean, what, he's fresh off his Maverick. That
Yeah,
was the last big one that he had, and that was
and that
breaking box
was
office records.
yeah, it was last year. Last year he had like the biggest movie of the year, and this year, I mean, it made 23 million like first 2 days or something. So those are big numbers considering it just came out.
So while we're on this, I know that you had snuck into the movie theater to see it, correct?
I
So
did.
are you going to be doing a standalone episode on that?
I had thought about it, and I might still do it. I just haven't had time, um, but I may still do that. Yeah, so stay tuned. That may happen. So my number five, Speed 2 Cruise Control. If you are not familiar with what this is, it's probably a good thing. It is the sequel to the hit 1994 movie Speed, starring Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. This time around, Sandra Bullock returns, but Keanu is far gone, and we have Jason Patrick playing a new character, a new boyfriend. Um, and they're on a boat this time instead of a bus. And Willem Dafoe is our baddie who has a bomb on the boat. And it's just not a good movie. I mean, We're talking about unnecessary sequels. Well, this not only is this unnecessary, but it's just not a good movie in general.
Okay. Going into number four, I'm going to pick up another one that's slightly controversial. This one also being newer in the box office, but nowhere near as new as Dial of Destiny. And then I'm talking about the Jurassic World franchise. In particular, we're talking about Dominion. Um, the big thing with this movie, we brought back the original cast, had a lot of promise. I know a lot of moviegoers like myself and Matt are really excited to see the original gang team up with the newer generation of cast. We know that we saw a little bit of a falter there in Fallen Kingdom, especially with our feelings, personal feelings on the cloning. I think we both agreed that kind of got a little crazy. And then we kind of took a sidestep in this last movie away from dinosaurs, and we put a full focus in on prehistoric insects. Now, there were some good throwbacks that tied into the original, but nowhere near the same extent that Jurassic World had captured. Personally, I think that Jurassic World is probably one of my all-time favorite sequels. Um, and unfortunately, this just didn't honor that, didn't honor the original, and unfortunately kind of tarnished the whole franchise for me. So that's where I was number four. How about you, Matt?
And funny, I was trying to think of what my honorable mentions were. That was the one that I was forgetting. It didn't make my list, and apparently it didn't even make my honorable mentions, but it's definitely on there if the list was longer. But I instead chose to go another Jeff Goldblum route. My number four is Independence Day 2 Resurgence. This movie is god awful. You want to talk about something that didn't need to be made? It is this. It had a lot of the same elements. It had, the cast, Bill Pullman, Jeff Goldblum, all returning. No Will Smith, but I don't think that's what's killing it. I think it's the story, it's the script, and it's just not very well done.
Yeah. No, I have to give it to you. On that one, I'd agree. Unfortunately, full heartedly with that. Just something that we didn't need. Uh, Moving forward to our number three, Matt and I, before the show had a little bit of talk. I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but for my number three, went with was the Son of the Mask, and truthfully, this was a movie I can't quite remember. Matt, was this one that released straight to DVD? Because I don't remember this
No,
coming out in movie theaters.
I think it went to theaters.
Did it?
I'm pretty sure I remember trailers for a theater release when this happened.
It's crazy. I mean, honestly, we're talking about a movie that features Jamie Kennedy in the starring role, trying to pick up the mantle where Jim Carrey had left off. Unfortunately, this does not have the energy that we had out of Jim Carrey's The Mask. I think the writing was sloppy, the premise was poor. Honestly, even the aesthetic of it, it doesn't even feel like a spiritual successor to the original. Unfortunately, just sloppy, badly done, but I don't want to go too deep into it because Matt, what was your number three pick?
My number three is also Son of the Mask. This is the one point where we cross over, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's just overall not a very well done movie, and it's taking nothing away from the cast, Jamie Kennedy, or really any of that. It's a movie. Really, in general, The Mask is a movie, that first original film. It can't be duplicated, and if you're going to try, you have to have Jim Carrey. That's the only way you could even attempt it, and they attempted it without him. We have Son of the Mask, and it wishes it was half the movie that The Mask is.
It's crazy. In my number two pick, moving along down the list, I went with a split decision because I couldn't just suss out just one. And I know Matt's not very happy with one of my picks, but the first one I think we both agree on is not necessarily the greatest movie of all time. American Psycho 2, starring Mia Kunis. Truly, it was a movie that didn't again capture the greatness of the original. And talking to Matt, I referred to the original as almost a piece of art where you get to relate to the character of Patrick Bateman. You start to question whether or not his reality is actually true or not by the ending. And then I'm sorry, Kayla's got a sidebar. What do we have from you, Kay? Oh, I'm not sure. Okay. Apparently, the fact that I may have related to Patrick Bateman might be scaring my person over the side street. But truthfully, it doesn't have the same Arab mystery. It makes you believe or lean one way, while The story or the original went a completely opposite direction. In my opinion, it just seemed like they tried to match the energy of movies like Scream or something more of that genre, more so than try to be the successor to the American Psycho. So for that reason, this one is high on my list of honorable dismentions. And then also, my number two a spot, as you will. Unfortunately, comes down to Halloween 3. I understand that Halloween originally was meant to be an anthology. And when they had Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, it was not meant that they were forever going to be Michael Myers. I understand this. I just feel like that Halloween 3 was not the direction to take it if that was the risk or what if that's what they wanted to do. And I think that they saw that and immediately pulled the reins back on that and started going the Michael Myers route again, which honestly, that's what this franchise has been good at times. But unfortunately, I feel like Halloween 3 is kind of where the franchise starts to lose its identity. I know Matt's going to go down the road. He could tell you, it's like, hey, number one, number two, and no, will be all like the original. But for me, number 3 has no place in the Michael Myers universe. Obviously, this is part of a universe of its own, and that's why it's my number 2A spot.
It is a universe of its own. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you there. It's its own timeline. It's not connected to any of the others. Um, I hold my thoughts and uh, uh, judgment on that until one day when we do a Halloween themed episode, which we will have to do. Because if I start talking about this, I'll go too long. My number 2 is Grease 2. You're not the one that I want. Not this time around, Michelle Pfeiffer. We got John Travolta and oh gosh, just passed away. What's her name?
Olivia
Olivia
Newton-John.
Newton John. Yes, thank you. Um, in this classic movie, I mean, I think it's a thing where we've said everything we need to say with that first movie. I don't think it needed a sequel. So this really falls under more of that unnecessary category. I it's not I'm not knocking it as something that's necessarily a bad movie, but it's not a great movie and it's not a needed movie. So that's why it is my number 2.
Okay. Solid. Solid reasons, Mr. Matt. Moving on to my last and final pick. I think this one's going to be controversial as well.
Drum roll, please.
Top Gun Maverick. No, I'm just kidding.
I
I'm
was like,
messing around.
whoa.
I just wanted to get some reaction there. No, truthfully, thinking back to movies, we talked about one of the actors that starred in one of the franchises I was thinking about, which was Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber, which I think
Mm,
ultimately is one of those comedies I look very fondly back on from my youth, and I feel like still to this day it holds a high spot in a lot of people's minds, memories, and video catalogs, obviously. Um, so Dumb and Dumber comes out, and while I don't think it's as good as the original, I also don't think it's a terrible movie. There are parts I definitely laughed at, but then we came back for Dumb and Dumber 2, and I remember going to see this in the movie theater, and it's very hard for me to justify getting up and walking out in the movie theater. I came very close to this. It just didn't recapture any of the what made the original so great. It just seemed tired. It seemed like played through. There wasn't a lot of thought behind it in the writing. And honestly, we have the original characters' names, but I don't feel like the energy was there. It almost felt like they didn't really want to be there doing it again. Like, if that makes sense, it came through over the camera. Just unfortunately, it's the number one. Like, if you had just left Dumb and Dumber by itself, Dumb and Dumber, okay. But with that last one, it just took it out of my sales, and curious if it did yours too. But I guess we're back down, Mr. Matt, down to your number one.
I agree with you on Dumb and Dumber 2. That's a movie where even in the theater, you could tell, like you said, it just didn't feel right. And I don't, it felt very much like they were phoning in the performances. They were there because of the paycheck and because the people wanted it, but they didn't give the people a good movie, unfortunately. It was better off left in everyone's imagination, I think. Like, the what if they got back together and did it? I think it was better left there than actually doing it. My number 1 is another cash grab, uh, better left in your head and in imagination because this was horrible. I'm talking about LeBron James in Space Jam 2. Uh, Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny and that whole Looney Tune crew in that first Space Jam movie is iconic, especially if you were a child or grew up in the 90s. That movie, I mean, granted, it's not like a five-star movie, but that movie is very classic and is very decent on its own legs and its own right. I felt Space Jam 2 when they first announced it, I was even like, I hope this is good. And then they said LeBron James. I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense, but I'm not feeling it. And then I watched it. And I did not like the animation style that they went with. I did not think the story was very well written. LeBron James can't act, in my opinion. It was not for me whatsoever. It was a if we had a rating system, it was a 1 star movie for me. It was not good.
And that would be generous.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I did half stars, it'd be a half a star movie.
Well, I mean, folks, there you have it. The top five sequels that we don't think should have been made, or just terrible sequels in general. I'm curious to think if you guys agree with us, if you disagree with us. Hey, if you disagree with us, give us an argument why you think this movie shouldn't be on the list. Maybe it's one of your all-time favorites. I know a couple movies that we had mentioned have they're divided. Some of the movies, loved by critics, hate by people.
Halloween 3.
Yeah, Halloween 3, sure. But yeah, leave us a comment if you do not agree with us. Give us a like if you do agree with us. Have
And
some engagement.
if we've forgotten something, like if maybe there's a sequel that we're just totally spacing on, and you're like, well, what about this? This should have never been made. Let us know.
Yeah. And while we're at this point, I'm gonna kind of say something for our channel that probably needs to be said, guys. We're looking for more subscribers. And if you enjoy videos like this, like especially with the top five, that's something that we're going to be getting into more of. So please subscribe, like, comment. Engagement is what we're looking for. We want to have like-minded individuals or differently minded individuals letting us know your opinions, thoughts, concerns, and possibly even have you up on the show with us. So reach out any way, shape, or form. Matt, what's the channel called these days?
It is still youtube.com/picture this film reviews. The name of the channel, once you get there, is Matt Knows Best. You can also go youtube.com/Matt Knows Best. Both URLs will get you there. The Matt Knows Best is basically I run the channel essentially, and it's everything that I've ever been involved with ever. Essentially, anything on film is on this channel. Everything from movies I've made to home movies of me and my family that I really just uploaded just so I could have digitally. Wasn't really meant for the public, but they're there. And then any kind of funny skits from back in the day with my brother and friends and you name it, it's there. Along with every single episode of Picture This Film Reviews, even when it was the MDVA Movie Club, even when it was Two Nerds in a Movie, it's all there. So check it out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for tuning in with us today. And Matt, what should we do?
Everyone have a great week. We'll catch you next time and love one another.
Thank you, guys.